Hello, Dr. Larry Carnes, and welcome to Books of the Month. We're so excited to have you with us for another powerful and exciting broadcast. And we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Michael Decuir. Dr. Michael, how are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about my research. And I'm so happy to meet you, brother.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, and everybody's very nice here. This is a great opportunity for me to talk my head off.
It's
to somebody who will listen.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. Do this for me. Take about 60 seconds. Look right there. Introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dr. Michael Decuir, and I am so honored to be here and to share my research. And my book is titled Louis Armstrong and the Artistic, Philosophical, and Political Debate During the Harlem Renaissance, which happens to be about 100 years ago. We are in the centennial of it right now.
Okay.
So thank you.
You're welcome. So you have this powerful book, as you've given the title, Louis Armstrong, Blues, Music, and the Artistic, Political, and Philosophical Debate During the Harlem Renaissance. Now, I found this quite interesting. It says that you explore the interrelationship of the literary, visual, and performing arts, politics, and opposing philosophies during the Harlem Renaissance. Yes. I found this to be powerful. Your research documents the West African roots of blues and jazz music to New Orleans and Louis Armstrong. Yes. Unpack that for us and speak to our viewing audience about this powerful book.
Yes, thank you for the chance to unpack that. Nothing happens in a vacuum culturally.
Okay.
And my research took me, of course, I'm from New Orleans, I should say that, and Louis Armstrong is one of our greatest gifts to the world.
Yeah.
But he was informed. His art came from his culture, the cultural behaviors in New Orleans that I grew up with, and he grew up with, because he's much older than me. And so I researched that, and I tried to point to specifically where those behaviors come from. For example, you may or may not know, but a funeral in New Orleans is a celebration.
Yes,
we dance.
Yeah.
We dance. And so there's a reason why. Number one, the rationale is you've left the body, you've gone on, you've transitioned, but you're getting your rewards. You are going on to heaven.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's a graduation celebration. And so that comes from the Iwe and the Igbo people from West Africa, who were enslaved in the New Orleans region, and they passed those customs down, those behaviors down. And that's why we do that. It is a commonplace thing.
Yeah. When
somebody passes. And of course we're sad that they're gone, but celebration, you've gone on. You've done all of your work here. Now you've gone on to greater things.
The spirit has transitioned, and that skeleton remains, still stay.
Exactly.
But the true essence of who the person is still alive and has transitioned.
That's it.
Now that's powerful.
Exactly it. Yes.
Yes,
indeed. Yeah.
That's powerful. You say something here. Drawing on his own experiences, your experiences growing up in New Orleans, you detail the related cultural behaviors and their manifestations during the Harlem Renaissance. Speak to us about that, because I'm hearing this Harlem Renaissance.
Yes.
And what was the impact of that?
Yes. I was blessed to have some of the teachers that I had growing up in New Orleans. And I explore to some detail in the book. It was during the 1960s, which was a transition from segregation to integrated schools.
Okay.
I had some great teachers who taught us of the proclivities and the worthiness of that period called the Harlem Renaissance. So we learned, it wasn't in the school books now, but we learned of Langston Hughes, Sterling Brown, Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Duke Ellington, and of course Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
From New Orleans. So we couldn't escape it, as we shouldn't have escaped it. And so Louis Armstrong contributed mightily to blues music and the popularity of blues music. He was on more than 114 recordings as a sideman. That is, they hired him to come on a record so they can sell a record.
Right.
So his input had a lot to do with the popularity of the music. And so we had these coinciding factors, these things coming together. All of the written artists, Langston Hughes, they started writing their poetry and stories and and novels, if you will, nonfiction stories
Yes.
with a blues related theme. And so I explored how that music informed not only the literary arts, but also the performing arts, Duke Ellington and all of these guys.
Now,
Everybody was looking to that music.
you said something, the music informs. And I saw as I was researching your powerful book, you talked about how the Africans, even the slaves, would use the music to communicate with each other.
Yes.
That's so very powerful.
Yes.
Now, Louis Armstrong, powerful, but he was an activist also.
Yes, he was.
Deeply involved in the activities and the political things that were taking place.
That's
Speak
correct.
to us about that
Sure.
and how you written about that in this powerful book.
Sure. I call it I think it was Amir Baraka was the first person I saw use this term, functional art. The art functioned not only for us to dance, but it also had a medicinal, it had healing qualities. When I say art, I'm talking about blues music.
Yes.
Now, it was quite often on the plantation that our slave ancestors used what we call double entendre. I'm singing one thing, but I mean something else. So when we explore the text of songs like Deep River, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Harriet Tubman, or somebody's coming, we're going to leave here. And so they use the words to communicate these messages.
Yes.
And I thought that was so powerful when I first learned that. And I do an exploration into the text of some of those slave songs in the book, so you can see how using that double entendre they communicated, because they couldn't let the slaveholder know they were
Correct.
to escape, but they used it and so I'm like, wow, that is so. Now when we get to actual blues music during the Harlem Renaissance, I explored the text. I did an analysis of many of the texts of a lot of the blues songs, and what we get is the same thing. Essentially, I think this is the most powerful thing. When you have trouble in your life, the first point of liberation, my homeboy Branford Marcellus was the first one to discuss this. You have to identify what is giving you trouble. What is the problem? Once you identify the problem, you're on your way to freedom. You have to identify the problem. So this husband of mine is not a good man. This wife of mine, I'm destitute. I need a new, whatever the problem is. And so many of those songs, it is so interesting. So many songs begin with identifying the problem, and I try to show it through my textual analysis.
Okay.
And then you come up with a solution. So you're on your way to freedom. So it's liberating music.
I'm listening to you, and I thought about that when you said identify the problem, and the thing that hit me, see, because if I don't identify the problem, I can't come up with the solution to the problem.
Exactly.
So there must be an identification that takes place before the solution is going to take place.
Exactly.
Now that's powerful. What was it? The moment, the memory, and the message that inspired you to write this book? Because it's so powerful, and you get into such detail.
Yes.
What was it that just inspired you to take this?
Yes, I did have. I imagine all of us who went to college or go to college, you had that professor, and this man who was a great guy, great teacher, and his message to us was that the Harlem Renaissance was really not much of a cultural period. That those folk like Langston Hughes and Louis Armstrong together that we explored actually were not that astute. They weren't that good. They were just imitating other. And I was so taken aback by...
That's what the professor said?
Yes.
Wow.
I won't call his name. I was taken aback. And no, because I just had years of teaching that taught me that period was a phenomenal period.
So that was the moment and the message.
That did it. And all these years later, that was quite a while ago. All these years later, I just jumped into it.
Wow.
So if I'm going to contribute to the scholarship, I need to do it in such a way that is, write a book, so that maybe one day somebody will come along and look at my research and understand that Harlem Renaissance, that period, culture period, was phenomenal, and there was some great work that was produced.
Yes.
Particularly the codifying of blues music, and which I think may have been America's first popular music. It was so, and then I took it a step further in my book. Why is it? And what I learned is from educational psychologists or philosophers, Theodore Adorno, when you feel kinship with something.
Yes.
So many people heard some music and heard problems. Oh, I'm going through that too. And, you fall in love with. You fall in love with, maybe that's a more powerful term, falling in love with, but you acquiesce to things that I feel an association.
You can identify with it.
Identify with it, yes. And so we had that in America for a period of time. As a matter of fact, blues music is still very popular.
Very popular.
Especially down in the South where we live. There are places.
Let me tell you, me growing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, did you?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Yes. So blues, we think about, B.B. King, and people like that, and so Bobby Blue Bland and all those people.
Yeah.
But Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, and all of those people, I guess, if there was a ceiling there, Louis Armstrong could be said that he kind of broke that ceiling.
I think so. That's a great point. I think so. And what about him allowed for that? He had a talented as all get out. When I have maybe 2 or 3 musical transcriptions.
Yes.
Things like his recording, like West End Blues. Other than that, what he's doing on the trumpet or cornet is just amazing.
It is amazing. When you say amazing. West End, now I thought here in Atlanta there's a West End. Used to be a West End Mall in West End. When I saw that in the book, I immediately went to West End. Then I'm thinking, was the West End Mall in that neighborhood? Was it named after? Did Louis Armstrong have some influence?
I don't think so, but now you're sending me on another rabbit trail. Rabbit hole. I got to find out. But essentially, West End in New Orleans, was a park, and many people would go there to picnic, and they would hire the local musicians to play. And so it was significant to Louis Armstrong and Joe King Oliver and all of those, and the many of the folk that Louis Armstrong was playing with on that recording. And so Joe King Oliver wrote a song, West End Blues, and what you hear Louis Armstrong do on that song is just amazing.
Wow.
I took it a step further, and Langston Hughes wrote an essay. He didn't write a lot of essays. He wrote an essay called The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain.
Yes.
And essentially, Louis Armstrong does what Langston Hughes, he suggests musicians and artists do. Use your
Let's do this. We're going to take a break. Listen, don't go any place. We're going to take a break here from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Sure. Thank you.
Is your car costing you a lot of money?
I swear, every time something goes wrong, it costs $1,000.
Stop worrying about what might go wrong with your car. Call now and get your Carefree Auto Card at no cost today. Activate it to protect your wallet from big car expenses. So call the number on your screen right now, and we'll send your Carefree Auto Card at no cost today. Activate it, and you'll get the same protection for up to 4 more of your cars free.
Call 1-800-483-7173.
Welcome back. We are here. We're talking about this awesome book that Dr. Decuir has written, Louis Armstrong, Satchmo. And here we are, blues music and the artistic, political, and philosophical debate during the Harlem Renaissance. Now, we were talking about some things. You talked about how that music can be healing, the different artists and people who were so instrumental. But with Louis Armstrong being an activist, what was the impact of him being an activist during a time when there were some awesome things, some terrible things going on? And he had to have impact. What was the impact of,
Yeah.
of his activity in that?
Yeah. The great thing, and of course, sometimes burdensome thing, is when Louis Armstrong says something, everybody listens. Remember years ago, they had a TV commercial. Well, and so he had an audience. He had a platform. And he used his platform. For example, years later, after the Harlem Renaissance, in the 1950s, when the students were trying to integrate Central High School, and
Yes.
of course, we know there was a lot of trouble with that. And
Yes.
just a few years later, the same thing was going on in New Orleans, which is when I was coming of age. Well, Louis Armstrong let the world know we're not, things are not as kosher as you may think in America.
And as you presented them to be.
Yes.
Okay.
And there were some issues with him and the federal government, but he stood fast, and he was like, this has to change. This has to be different. And when he played, he had a platform, and he let the world know.
I'm looking here, an exploration into the roots and ramification of Armstrong's contributions to blues music, the cross influences and interrelatedness of the period's artists and activities or activists.
Yes.
Who were seeking their constitutional rights and relief from the crescendo of the terrorist attacks.
Yes.
During the 19th century.
Yes.
And so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of some things.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so glad you mentioned, because what we must understand, there were organizations, obviously, Marcus Garvey's group, UNA,
Yes.
the NAACP, headed by W.B. Du Bois. And the goal was single. The goal was monolithic. We need to have our constitutional rights. We should have the right to vote.
Yes.
Live where we want to live and go to school where we want to live. And of course, there was that pushback on all of that. But all of those organizations had that goal to gain those constitutions that's been denied. The issue was, how are we going to reach those goals? They differed.
Wow.
And on top of all of that, Louis Armstrong and all these blues musicians, Brian Lemon Jefferson, all of these folk, they're creating this great music, liberating music, and the masses are listening to this music, and so those organizations felt a need to reach out to the people, if you will, and let's all get on one accord in terms of, and I use the term terrorist attacks because of my research, I discovered a lot of detail on a lot of lynching, particularly in the South. And it was just as terrible as you might think. People just trying to vote or exercise it. And
because we came up during that era.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
So we can relate
we can relate to it.
The music and the influence that music has, and we're talking about Louis Armstrong. Why was he so influential, and why did he have that clout? I'm sure you covered some things in the book. What's something from the book that you'd like our viewing audience to know? Look right there and give them a nugget from this book that would inspire them to go out and purchase this book.
Oh, thank you. I'm most proud of my chapter on blues music as a functional art that we talked about in an earlier segment. But I think the nuanced look that I take, and it took quite a number of weeks to put it all together. Everything happened for a reason. Everything informed everything else. For example, Langston Hughes' period called Weary Blues. Well, he would write his poems as though it was a blues song, even though it didn't have a melody or anything like that. And that appealed to a lot of people, and they read Langston Hughes because it flowed like a blues song. That is, so what flow? What do you mean, Doc? What I mean is, problem is stated, and then you get the solution or what. So you have the problem. So what are you gonna do? I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna stay on this railroad station and get out of this town because my luck is running. There's always a solution to the problem, and so it's a liberating music. And Langston Hughes recognized that. Langston Hughes also recognized that the dilemma a lot of those artists were, Louis Armstrong and a lot of those artists were going through. Should I write music, sing music, or should I paint paintings that are acquiesced to the larger culture, so that they'll say that's good work, that's a good song?
Wow.
Or do I do it because this is what I'm feeling? I wanna write a song about that lynching last week. And so there was a debate about that. What should we do? Should we concern ourselves only with the issues we have in as Black Americans?
Yes.
Or should we just try to paint beautiful things?
Well, you know, because we're dealing with cultural things here.
Exactly.
And so, so
exactly right.
What are some details here in the book? Some of the chapters in the book.
Sure.
Share with our viewing audience some of the chapters in the book.
Yes.
And why they need to go out and purchase this book.
Oh, thank you. Chapter 5 and Chapter 6, I think I'm really proud of, because of the discourse analysis I did on some of those poems and some of those blues songs. For example, Blind Lemon Jefferson, he recorded a song called "See That My Grave Is Kept Clean."
Wow.
And what Jefferson is thinking, he's thinking that maybe terminally ill, but how am I going to be remembered? But I know if my friends will periodically clean my grave, they're thinking about me, that I won't be forgotten.
Yeah.
And that's something we all face, that the inevitability of our transition, and will we leave a mark? Will our friends remember us?
So the poetry and the music was actually addressing life, life's concerns and life issues.
Yes, almost every instant. And there's always, and that's in Chapter 6, there's always problem, solution, paradigm.
Mine.
If you, and it is amazing. The other thing is, my mom loved that music. And she taught me to listen to music with a third ear. And so, you know how we are. Little boys always, my mom liked it, I liked it. It made her feel good, made me feel good.
She taught you to listen to music with a third ear.
Yes.
What's the third ear?
There's always something deeper to the lyrics. There's always, this is before I understand blues as liberating music. She would always say, listen, there's something deeper. There's something deeper in the melody. And that informs me to this very day. I'll hear, especially things I like. I'll hear things, let me hear that again. And then you hear something else. When I hear Billie Holiday sing,
yes,
it moves me every time. Sometimes it's the same song that I heard yesterday. Moves me in another way. And so I get that with Louis Armstrong. I get that his technique, his prowess on the cornet, trumpet, was just amazing. And everybody who I speak with, and I speak with a lot of professional musicians who play.
Yes.
And they tell me, man, that is some of the hardest music to play.
That he played.
That he played. And that New Orleans, traditional New Orleans polyphony, that trombone, clarinet, trumpet.
Yes.
It is something to study. It is something to marvel. You
mentioned earlier how New Orleans has just set a standard, the culture, when there are homegoings and transitions. You know, we talk about life celebration. Well, it's actually acted out in New Orleans, and has been for as long as I can remember.
Yes. And my research, through my research, it's a West African cultural behavior and Igbo people, probably who were enslaved in New Orleans area, brought it to us. The other thing, there is and it's so commonplace in New Orleans, I assumed it was all over the world. There's what we call a communal approach to making music.
Okay.
And what I mean by communal, my professor in California, Ollie Wilson, the folks who are listening to the music or watching the parade in New Orleans, it's okay for them to join.
Yes. Yes.
You find something that you can beat on and make a rhythm of it. You join in, and the musicians expect, or if we hear a good sermon in church, it's okay to say amen.
So if the people on the street did not join in and participate, the musicians probably think, well, we're not really hitting it today.
That's exactly right. And on the same note, a preacher would think, well, maybe my sermon is not going across because nobody's responding.
Wow.
So we get that call response. It's a West African culture, musical, cultural behavior.
That is so powerful.
Commonplace in New Orleans.
I'm going back to this. You specifically, the enslaved use of song text to relay messages of escape and danger.
Yes.
The use of field songs to ease the burden of labor.
Yes.
You know,
and we get
that is so powerful.
It is powerful. And thus, my argument that music is a functional art. It is. I'm not singing a song to entertain you. I'm singing a song because we got to move these railroad tracks.
And it's therapeutic.
Yes. And so that's what I discovered. And so when we get, there's so many narratives from our enslaved ancestors where people are listening to them sing while they're working. In the case of my family, chopping out sugarcane in Louisiana, picking cotton in Mississippi. And people are being entertained by this music, but our ancestors are producing this music for a purpose.
Wow.
It's a function.
That's powerful. Dr. DeQuir, we have 2 minutes.
Oh. Okay.
I want you, time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
I want you to do this for me.
Sure.
Look right here and tell our viewing audience, give them your contact information, be it website, email, any contact information, and where they can purchase this powerful book.
Great.
You can even, the cover is amazing.
I'll pull it up. Maybe.
Yes.
So,
give them that information.
Yes,
60
thank
seconds.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody here. And so my website is at Michael, Michael, Decuir, DECUIR, books.com. It's publisher is Ewing Publishing Company, and you can purchase it. You go to the website and you can purchase the book out of paper bound or hard copy, whichever you want. And my email address, my last name, DECUIR, letter M, letter D, at gmail.com. DecuirMD@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And if we can connect, I would be more than happy to sign the book. And I appreciate you checking my research out. And I hope it meets your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. I tell you, it's been such an honor and a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, it's my honor, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You're so
Might
welcome.
I add one more thing?
Yes, very quickly.
I promised I would use my platform like Louis Armstrong did. Any males who are within earshot of my voice, if you're over 40 years old, make sure you do your prostate exams every year. PSA works. I'm a little bit troubled by the recent news in the mail. I'm sorry, on the news about men having a struggle or even dying. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Want to encourage you to do that. Go get yourself checked out. Do what's necessary. Let's stay healthy.
It's curable.
I'm Dr. Larry Carnes. This has been Books of the Month. Make sure you join us again right here next time for Books of the Month.